So, hey guys, welcome to Expat and Nomad Life, where we give you the best advice about being an expat and a nomad, and also interview people who are living the life of an expat and nomad. And with that said, today we have with us Marc. And this is kind of an exceptional story for me because as a digital nomad from the Caribbean, I don't often meet lots of expats or nomads from the Caribbean, and especially not from Haiti. Now, if you notice, there's a fly that's flying around, and if I get up during the course of the video and slap that fly, please excuse me. But yeah, back to my point. The thing is here is that you don't often see Caribbean expats or nomads traveling around the world, and to find someone from the Caribbean is like wow, but to find someone from Haiti is like super wow. Because if you know or you don't know, Haiti has the weakest passport in the Caribbean. I'm sorry, Marc, but it
It's
is
a
what it is.
fact.
It's a fact, yeah.
It is what it is.
And there's some difficulties that come with traveling with a weaker passport, or even traveling as a person from a small island. Like my passport's not so weak, but people don't know where Barbados is. So we're going to discuss all those things today with Marc. But first, before we get there, let's ask Marc. Marc, how did it start? Where did it start? Why? Why become a digital nomad and travel to all the countries that you've had so far?
Well, first thing I want to do is thank you for having me. Thank you
Yeah.
for asking me to do the interview. It's an honor to be here. And to answer your question, it's really interesting. It started by accident. It wasn't even on purpose.
Really?
Yeah, I remember before I was just an expat. So I had moved from Haiti to the Dominican Republic, and I was working, in a few different call centers, and I really got tired of working in call centers. So I quit my job, and I was just living off of my savings. After a couple months, started to go broke, so decided to in the Dominican Republic, when you're looking for work, it's not like now where you can just like pull up LinkedIn or Google anything. You just get the morning newspaper and look in the classifieds,
Yeah.
and you see these ads, for work. So I remember finding an ad for a teaching position, and they said that they would train you. So I did it, and I got the job. 6 weeks of training. I taught there for over a year, and then I had a plan to move to South Korea. And a friend of mine's that I met at that institute, that language institute, he told me about a online platform that was hiring native speakers to teach. And so I just gave it a shot. I got accepted. I got to Korea. My plan was to live in Korea for like about 3 years. At the time, I was with someone. My partner was Korean, and that whole situation didn't work out. So I ended up moving out and being on my own on the opposite side of the world. Luckily for me, I had throughout that entire time that I was in Korea, I spent about 2 years in Korea. I always taught a few hours on that platform, you know, but I still didn't have it in my head that I can do this anywhere and everywhere until I moved to another place and it became my main source of income.
Mm.
And that's when I was like, wow, I think I can do this from anywhere, and I tried it out. I would travel to, I was based at that point, I was based in Cambodia, and I tried it out. I said, okay, let me go to Malaysia for a month. The time difference is only an hour. The time difference between Cambodia and Korea is only 2 hours. Um, I was able to do it. I was able to successfully transition from Cambodia to Malaysia for a few months, and then uh, I went to Philippines, went to Singapore. I was like, wow, I can really do this. And so that's how I really started. It wasn't even on purpose. It was just by accident.
So, but so it was an accident. But why? Why are you? What is it about being a digital nomad that is so appealing to you?
I mean, other than the obvious, which is definitely the flexibility and the freedom. I'm location independent, so I don't have to rely on being on one place because of meetings or because of you know uh, anything of the sort. I can be anywhere at any time. I've taught classes in stairways. I've taught classes at the airport. I've taught classes on balconies. You know, one time I think I just threw up a curtain in the back of a car, and I taught a class there. You know, and the students had no idea where I was. So that's number one. And for me, being a teacher and having to be on video, it's a little bit more challenging than someone who just has to uh, do emails or create a or edit videos and things like that. That doesn't require a video, you know. But for me, it does, and it requires a quiet location. So for specifically for teachers or anyone who's who relies on videos, you need a quiet location. So it's not easy for me to just walk into like a co-working space and just teach. I can't have people walking behind me. I can't have people, having, business calls across from me, things like that. But the flexibility, the freedom, and I would just say uh, the control. I have so much control over my time, over my energy. So to me, though, for me, those are the most appealing things.
So yeah, that's a really great way to enter being a digital nomad, and I understand what it means when you say about finding a quiet place to teach, because I also teach. Sometimes the other digital nomads with the programmer and stuff, they can go anywhere. We
Right.
can too, but there's a little bit more limitations
There
on these
is.
places. But talking about places, is there one place, one country that you love, or some place that you would recommend, like all digital nomads should go there and try that place out? Like,
Well, um, I haven't been to too many places. I have friends who've been to, over 20, over 30, over, 40, 50 countries. So far, I would say, let's see, I've lived in Korea for 2 years. I've lived in Dominican Republic for 3 years. I lived in Hong Kong for a year and a half. I was in Malaysia for about 4 or 5 months. Cambodia for a year and a half. I've been to Turkey. I've been in Turkey now about 15, 16 months. 10 days in Philippines and a week or two in Singapore. So that's in total, including the States and including Haiti, that's about 11 countries, right?
that's a lot more than most people.
True, true,
Yeah.
true. And I always try to live in the countries that I go to. So I have a deeper like understanding and experience than most people. I would say it's really hard to choose. I would encourage people to go anywhere and everywhere as long as you do the necessary steps of verifying the internet connection and things like that, safety and housing and cost of living. But if I had to choose one place that I had to live for the rest of my life and I could not leave, I think it would definitely be Malaysia.
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 Interesting. Why Malaysia?
Well, the first thing you notice in Malaysia is the diversity. It's the first thing that I noticed because when you go to China, it's just Chinese. When you go to Korea, it's just Korean. When you go to Philippines, it's just Filipino.
Mm-hmm.
But Malaysia has the nickname of the United States of Asia
Mm-hmm.
because they have the Malay people, they have the Indian Malay people, and then they have the Chinese Malay. And when you go into government offices, you see that representation, behind the desk, and it's
Wow.
really really interesting. It's really cool to see women um, who have full body coverage alongside women who have a hijab but they're also wearing shorts and their belly button's pierced, right? Yeah. So that's really 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 interesting because usually when you travel you find one but not the other,
Yeah, yeah.
and to see them socializing and just living and living together in like peaceful and in harmony, it's really great. So I would say Malaysia, number one, that's what you're gonna find. Number two, the internet connection is great. It's perfect. The cost of living is great. And how would I describe Malaysia? I would say that Malaysia is as developed as Korea, but the cost of living is similar to Thailand. You can get a great 3 bedroom apartment um, with a gym and an amazing swimming pool, an amazing an amazing building
Mm-hmm.
for around 600 US a month, and that's 3 bedrooms. You can split that with someone. You can get a beautiful studio apartment, complete with everything. You just have to move in with your bag for around 400 a month. Maybe 350 a month. if you search. So the food is great. That mixture of Indian cuisine and Chinese cuisine, and the local cuisine is amazing. You know, and everything is so affordable. At the time, I think I was living in Malaysia, and I was only making probably around like 1,200 a month, and life was great. I was able to do anything and do everything as long as I budgeted everything correctly. So
Um, I would also recommend Malaysia, and I would also recommend, like you said, like you need to really go out there and find your own place. But
right,
for some reason, I really like Malaysia too,
yeah,
and
yeah,
hopefully, I get to go back to Malaysia soon.
yeah.
It's a really awesome place. One quick other question about Turkey. How do you find Turkey, Antalya, where we are right now?
Oh, it's it's amazing.
Mhm.
I really enjoy I really enjoyed here. And the thing is, it's it's so interesting how when you're entering into another country, people think like, okay, when I travel to the country, I'm gonna base I'm gonna base how much I enjoy it and how much I like it off of, you know, the places that I go and the people that I meet and the things that I see, the food that I eat. But as a digital nomad, especially as a digital nomad with traveling with one of the weakest passports in the Caribbean, the weakest passport in the Caribbean, Haiti, even though we are the first Black republic in the world, the first country to where the slaves revolted and won, but we are the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere with the weakest passport in the Western Hemisphere. And when traveling, that first line of defense for that country to filter through people is immigration. And immigration is always a challenge. And so for me, I based how great a country is not only just, what I see in the country, but like once I come across the people in immigration and how I'm treated, you know. And the treatment, unfortunately, over the years has really sucked. It doesn't matter how fluent your English is. It doesn't even matter how much money you have in your pocket. Once they come across my passport and they look at it, it's always a situation. I'm sometimes, most of the time, called into some separate room, questioned, asked to see money, asked to take money out of the ATM, things like that. So, that is always my initial experience. Um, but sometimes some countries I don't have that issue, and I you know get past immigration, see the country, have a great time, meet great people, eat great food, and it's a great experience. So for Turkey and specifically for Antalya, my experience has been like 10 out of 10. When it comes to immigration, it's been great. When it comes to the local people, it's been great. When it comes to my environment, things to do here, it's really amazing. I think a lot of countries can take so much like knowledge and examples from the way that they do tourism here in Turkey, because when I travel to other places, people go to Bali because of the beaches and because of surfing and because of hiking, right?
Mm.
That's most of the reason people go to Bali. People go to Malaysia for Kuala Lumpur, the beautiful like city and the twin towers that they have there, and sightseeing. People go to Korea again, just sightseeing. Maybe in the winter you can go skiing, but it's not really known for that. They have Jeju Island, which has some beautiful beaches. So a lot of places, there's all these like specific things that you can do, but there's not a lot of like diversity in those things. Whereas in Turkey, like they're known for their ski resorts, they're known for their beaches. Where you can go jet skiing, you can go parasailing, you can go windsurfing. They have all these activities right there on the beach for tourists. When you go up into the mountains, there's beautiful hiking trails, and different levels depending on if you're an advanced or if you're a beginner. And then once you go into the cities, there's so many different activities. Recently I've gone, paintballing in an amazing location, and you can tell they've invested heavily into it. So Turkey specifically has amazed me with just the variety of activities that you can get into compared to when I've traveled to other countries. And even though it was a great time and I saw beautiful things, it's kind of capped at that. Whereas Turkey, I feel like there's almost no cap. Everywhere I go, every city that I go, they have a variety of things, from winter activities to summer activities to indoor activities, which is great. Yeah. So that's why I love it here.
I understand what you mean about the immigration and the first line of defense. My passport, of course, luckily for me, it's not as weak as Haiti. Sorry, it's a relatively strong passport. I think it's like in the top 20 or so, and I still have problems sometimes.
Yeah.
I can see the immigration officer. I'm usually probably the only black guy
Yep.
in the whole place,
Yeah.
and they see me and they start looking at me, and then when I get there, they don't understand why I can travel without a visa, or they start asking me some ridiculous questions. I try to stay calm because for me it's a little bit strange. But I understand that lots of people also just don't know about Barbados. Then
Right.
when they search it on their system, they say, "Oh wow, you don't need a visa," and all this sort of weird kind of like racial stuff. But I get it. Don't really like to focus on racism, but it is what it is.
Right.
How do you deal with it? Like, how do you overcome this situation with having a weak passport? Or because I think lots of people out there, not everyone has a strong passport,
Right.
right? And I think there are lots of digital nomads out there, people who want to be digital nomads that would like to know like some advice, like what is it? Like, do you have like a formula that you can like recommend what they should do if they're gonna go out there and try to be digital nomads?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, you know, I've been a digital nomad for going on 7 years now. Throughout those 7 years, I've probably lived in around 9 to 10 countries, right? So I've definitely learned a lot of things and I've experienced really unpleasant things. I've been denied entry into multiple countries, for the only reason of having a weak passport. And, I understand that sometimes governments give quotas, so they're capped at people that they would allow to enter. And people don't do their job thoroughly to really filter out good and bad people. They just kind of base everything off of your passport. You have a weak passport, you're seen as undesirable, and so it's really easy to target you. I don't have any embassies in the region. So, if I am wronged, it's hard to seek justice when I have no representation to defend me, right? And recently I've experienced this, and it was a terrible experience. But my formula is to, number one, do your research. I always do as much research as possible. Wikipedia is a big help. I would look through Wikipedia. You can see the strength of your passport and every country that you have visa-free access to, visa on arrival, or e-visa, or uh, if you have no visa-free access, Wikipedia does a really good job at like listing all of the countries for Haiti. I just search. I think it's I look up Haiti visa requirements for Haitian citizens, right? And you can change it. You can visa requirements for Barbados citizens, and it'll give you an explanation at the top of how many countries you can go to, and then at the bottom it kind of gives you this whole format of countries based on you your like visas that you qualify for. And yeah, my formula is do as much research, because even though I look on that, I will then go to what is it called, the Passport Index. I think it's H&P Passport Index, something like that. It's a website that also they give you the most up to date information. So sometimes I look on Wikipedia and it says visa free or visa on arrival, and then I go to the HP Index and it says, you know, no visa, like not visa free.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to go to the embassy and get a visa. And then at that point, I will call the embassy in whatever country that I'm going to, and I would ask them, how does it work, things like that. I don't always get an answer. I would probably contact a friend to, contact the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in that country and ask particularly about my situation. So yeah, research, and number two, have a backup plan. Recently I went to Korea, I lived in Korea for about 2 years. My ex is Korean. I was there with her. I've been to Korea several times. The last time I was in Korea was 2 years ago, right before the pandemic. I spent about 10 days in Korea, and then I left. Now, 2 years later, I go to Korea again. I have everything. I have money. I booked a flight out from Korea to Bali after about like a month or a month and a half. I have Korean friends waiting for me on the other side of the airport, and I applied for my visa, my online visa. They have a new system now because of COVID. I was approved. I got my approval email. I took everything to immigration, and apparently, even though I applied 14 days prior to my arrival, and I received my approval like 3 hours after I applied, um, while I was on the plane on my way there, it got annulled. And I had no way of knowing this and verifying it. I had no access to internet once I leave the country that I'm in, right? So once I arrived there, they said, "Yeah, we just canceled it, and so we're not going to let you in." This was a almost $600 ticket, and they didn't explain to me why they canceled it. I knew why. Once, and they detained me. They took me to a holding area where I saw other people that were also being denied, and no one there was a native English speaker. I was the only person there that spoke English fluently. Everyone there did not speak English at all. Even the immigration officers barely could speak English. So right then and there, you already see like it's a it's a race issue, you know. Um, and they didn't care how well I spoke. They didn't ask me any questions about how much money I have or what I was doing there. Did I know anybody there? You know, it was we just denied you, even though it's been approved for 14 days. And the day of your arrival, we decided to deny you, and so you can't come in. And now you have to buy your flight, and you can only go back to Istanbul. It was a 15-hour flight, transit through Kazakhstan,
Oh my God.
and now I have to buy a $700 flight back.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, and my time in Turkey was up, so I didn't think Turkey was going to allow me to um, stay in the country again. I lived here over a year, you know, and yeah, no, I spent 2 days in the airport in Korea sleeping on benches before they finally told me that I had to buy my own flight. So I got the flight immediately. I flew back. In total, it took 4 days of my life, 5 flights, one shower.
Wow.
Slept in 3 airports. And it was a really unpleasant feeling, and it sucked. And I know it was completely based on my passport.
Hmm.
Because when I was in that area where I met, maybe there was like 20, 30 people, not one English speaker. And if it's and I know I didn't do anything wrong. I don't have any type of bad record in Korea or anything like that. So um, if I was just chosen out of random, why am I the only English speaker here other than the fact that I have a weak passport?
Yeah.
Right.
And you
So
did your due diligence and you did everything.
I did everything correctly. Right.
Yeah.
And so that was a really, really terrible experience. And unfortunately, as much as I loved Korea, and I always saw Korea as like almost like a second home because it was the first place I landed traveling to the other side of the world. It was the first country to kind of welcome me to Asia. And yes, when I was going through immigration, all the times that I like traveled out of Korea and went back, did I face more questions than the person you know before me did? I absolutely did. Did they call me into the room once or twice, and ask me a bunch of extra questions? They absolutely did. But at the end, I was always let in and welcomed. Whereas this time, it was a really, really bad experience.
Yeah.
So um, do your research and have a plan B.
Yeah.
And I fortunately I did have a plan B, um, and then it changed once I came back to Turkey. Turkey gave me a new tourist visa for 3 months. I had a flight to Sri Lanka a few hours later because I didn't think they were gonna, allow me to stay, but they did, and I just said, "Oh, forget about Sri Lanka. I'll go next year." I want to
Hmm.
stay in Turkey another 3 months.
They're very accepting.
Right.
It's very easy and no discrimination based
Definitely.
about your passport, the color of your skin. and stuff like that. But we as digital nomads, we can't really focus about racism
Right.
too much, you know.
Right.
And usually, I would say, would you agree that once you're traveling, racism really and truly is not such a big deal, in your opinion? Like it doesn't really affect your life so much.
I think that racism, in my experience, have lived in America and lived in, the Americas, and now have lived in both Eastern and Western Asia. The racism, it just, it's different. In, growing up in Miami, um, racism was, for me, okay, growing up in Miami, racism was um, having Hispanic police officers who treated I mean, people who come from the urban community, as just like not human beings. You know, that was that was that was the most intense. Now, living in the Dominican Republic as a Haitian, um, I saw the racism, I heard the racism, I heard the discrimination against Haitians, but I wasn't ever discriminated against because I was always in more of like the middle class, upper class because of my work and also the people that I knew and the neighborhoods and places that I lived. You know, um, most Haitians can't really afford that lifestyle. So, but I saw how other people talked about, Haitians that they deemed undesirable because they were illegal immigrants and whatnot. And now living in Asia, it's it's again, it goes back to immigration, you know, because that's your first contact with a local.
Yeah.
That immigration officer is from that country, and they're proud to be from that country, and they feel like they're doing their city or their country a service as being the first line of defense, right? So usually the most intense racism comes from them. Beyond that, I would say the racism that I experience is it's curiosity.
Mm.
It's the fact that I'm the first black person that they're coming in contact with, that um, they have an opportunity to like really analyze and maybe even touch, and ask a couple questions, and I've learned that it's harmless because it's truly just curiosity compared to growing up in America or living in the DR, growing up in America as a young black man and living in the DR as a Haitian, right? Whereas it's uh, on purpose. They see you and they know, but they just don't like you.
Yeah.
you know, they just don't like you. They understand right from wrong. They know the history. They just don't like you. So it's very different. Um, and it doesn't affect me in a negative way. Immigration, it does
Yeah.
get under my skin at times because it makes things really, really difficult. It's so hard to see, like, I'm standing in line and there's, three white people in front of me, and one of them, he's not even wearing any shoes. This is just how he travels, right? And you just see them like, boom, they go through the normal steps, look at the camera, bomb, passport, next, boom, passport, next, boom. And then when it's you're holding up the line for 15 minutes, being asked 1,000 questions, and everybody's just looking like, who is this guy? Why is he causing the line to be like held up?
Yeah.
And they're just asking you all these questions, like, where is Haiti? Is it Africa? And I'm like, no, no, no. It's like it's in the Americas. They're like, oh, America. Like, no, not America, but in the Americas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the racism traveling, the most intense thing as a young black man and as someone with a less desirable passport, it's immigration. Once you get beyond that, you're going to come across people who are curious uh, and just genuinely curious, or people who really, really don't know and may make a mistake. You
Yeah.
know, that doesn't hurt me. It
Yeah.
gives me an opportunity to, show them that what they think is not accurate, and educate them, and become friends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, yeah. I have the same experience. Like really similar experience, especially places like Russia, stuff like that. Lots of people, when they came visit me or saw me, they're like, "Oh, this is racism." For me, it's not racism; it's just curiosity.
Yeah,
They
right.
just don't know, you know.
Right, right. Yeah,
Like sometimes the
sure.
questions might seem silly,
Right,
or they might seem weird. And
right,
if you're coming from the Americas or maybe in Western Europe, where you have like systematical racism,
right.
where the
Exactly,
racism's like ingrained in the country
exactly.
because of colonialism, because of slavery, and all the other stuff like that. But the world's changing. The world, I think, things are getting better,
Mhm.
and we're moving forward. And talk about moving forward, like where does Mark go from here? Like, what's next for you? Do you have any plans? What countries? I heard you mention Sri Lanka, maybe. Is Malaysia in the future? You're teaching right now. Like, what are your plans?
Um, Great question. I am terrible at planning. It's just been my whole life. So I really like to wing it.
Yeah.
Anytime I try to plan something, it will go horribly wrong.
Okay.
So a lot of the places that I've been to and that I've traveled to and that I've lived in, it wasn't even planned. You know, it was just the last moment type thing.
Yeah.
Also, having the passport that I have, I my options are severely limited. You know, I think Haiti has a total of 50 maybe countries that they can go to. Um, and out of that 50, it's less than 10 that gives you truly visa free access.
Mm-hmm.
Visa free access means that you can just go there. You don't have to go to an embassy and make any requests. You can just book your flight, grab your passport, land in the country, and immigration, you know, asks you one or two questions. And if you're an okay person, boom, you're in, right? Haiti only has less than 10 countries that they can actually do that in, you know?
Wow.
And so then you're left with visa on arrival. There's only a handful of countries in that 50 that are visa on arrival. Then you have e-visa, you know, which is more challenging because it requires you to upload a lot of documents. So it's basically like going to the embassy, but without having to go to the embassy. You know, you can just do it all online.
Yeah.
So yeah, I go to countries just based off that, you know, and right now my whole plan for to get back to East Asia was Korea, and that all went down the toilet. You know, I lost a lot of money, and um, like I said, I have a flight from Korea to Indonesia. I was gonna be in Bali January 15th, right? And I went to Korea November 24th, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think. So I don't know. Yeah, Sri Lanka is definitely on the map because Sri Lanka is e-visa and visa on arrival.
Yeah.
And the ticket is actually quite affordable. It's only around $350 from Turkey. That's great. And then it's really close to Southeast Asia. So all the flights to Southeast Asia are less than $300, which again is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do like being in this area. And I have I think e-visa for Armenia for up to 4 months is an option. So I'm considering just so that I can stay in this region a little bit longer to go to Armenia for 4 months. So right now it's between Armenia, India, and Sri Lanka.
I mean, India and Sri Lanka. Wow,
Yeah.
good, cool. Which is quite interesting for me because up next I'm going to Sri Lanka.
No.
Right after this
Yes.
video, I'm going to be heading to Sri Lanka. So stay tuned. Look out for my stuff coming from Sri Lanka. Hopefully, I'll be uploading more videos. Thank you for everyone who's been writing to me and asking me, Dia, where are the videos? Okay, they're coming. Okay, they're coming. I'm really sorry about not uploading more stuff, and hopefully, I'll be more consistent in giving you that material and information you need. So, thank you, Marc, for your information. I hope it was helpful for you guys out there. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I will try to answer them. And if I can't answer them, hopefully I will be able to get hold of Marc and get you the information that you need. So from expat and nomad life, happy traveling, happy journey. Hope to see you out there somewhere in the world. Until next time, guys. Bye-bye.